In today's video, we are going to be talking about the death of the penny and the failing dollar. This is something that a lot of people have asked me to do a video on, is talking about the penny being removed from circulation and how this is a sign of the failing dollar system and what it is that this could mean for the purchasing power of the dollar going forward and what it is that people should be doing about it. Now, a lot of times we end up focusing in a lot on like two possible systems, a dollar system and then the gold standard. So either you're for gold or you're against gold, but not really is there a whole lot of times do we think about what it is that it means to be in gold, be in precious metals, to be in dollars versus being in anything else out there. Like, a lot of times people will bring in Bitcoin, they'll say like, well, cryptocurrencies, but generally most people have two different views, paper or metal. And now when you think about it in this fashion, either it's paper or it's going to be metal, when it comes down to a paper currency that is being used, there really is no value other than the perceived value of it. What can I get for these dollars? But when you're holding metal, you're holding something that has value to it beyond that of what it is that's been stamped on it. It has actual use to it. Like these pennies that are now being removed from circulation, they are of actual value because the copper content in them can be used for all kinds of industrial purposes. It's not just a matter of transferring value from one person to another. It's a matter of it being an actual useful commodity. Now, what I have done to protect myself in knowing that these copper pennies are worth far more than the face value, because I work a retail job, I pull all the copper pennies out of circulation. I have a bag right here that I've been saving for a few weeks, and it probably has 4.5 pounds of copper in it. Now, it took me no effort to sift through the coins as I'm at work, as I can now tell by the simple patina that's on them if they're copper or not. It's easy for me to pull those out without much effort and swap them out for the zinc. But even the zinc ones are worth almost a penny in itself. Now, a lot of times people say, oh, but what are you going to do with it? That's not going to be helpful or useful going into the future. When you have a bunch of pennies, what are you going to do with them when they disband them? And I'm thinking to the same people who are saying that, what do you think about a silver quarter right now? Like, how much is a silver quarter worth? A silver quarter is worth quite a bit. In fact, if you go to a website called Coinflation, coinflation.com has an excellent site that gives you the melt value of just about any coin you can imagine. In fact, let me bring it up. I left a link down in the description for you guys, but let me bring it up here for you. How's the reception? Are we coming through? All right. Can't pay my spending tickets with pennies. All right. Coinflation, or co-inflation, COINFLATION. All right, Coinflation, FLATION. Great website. Bring up that website, and down as you scroll towards the bottom, it will give you the melt value at the current copper price of a copper penny. And right now it is a little over 3 cents. Right? 323% of its face value. That's pretty cool. Now, a lot of times you're going to look at that and say, man, that ain't no big deal. But if you have a roll of pennies, you actually have $1.50 worth of copper. Can you imagine when that roll is worth $5? A lot of times people say, man, that's so insignificant, it doesn't mean anything, it's such a little amount. It's not a matter of the amount, it's the energy that you are putting into saving your money, knowing deep down inside that these pennies are worth more than the others, and that it's 3 times the face value, that I actually have in my hand far more value than what it is that the face value is showing. I take that into consideration. It doesn't seem insignificant to me. It seems very profound. And now, as I save these pennies, I also have the subconscious going that I want to save in other ways, not just in these pennies, but recognizing the value in that, I then recognize it in other things that are out there. That's the point. See, I actually seen people throw these into the garbage. I have a garbage can right near the till, and I've literally watched people pull the pennies out and throw them into the garbage can. And I think to myself, you know what your subconscious tells you when you do that? That you don't like money. That you want to see money go into the garbage. And therefore, you lose money and wonder, why is it so difficult to hold on to it? Why is everything so expensive? Why is it hard to pay my bills on time? And yet these people are throwing their pennies into the garbage or leaving them on the counter like, I don't need that money. I don't need money in my life. And I think to myself, well, I'll take those 2 pennies. Those are 2 pennies I didn't earn. And if you're going to leave money just laying on the table that you didn't earn that I can take, well, then I'll take it. I generally don't take that. I put it up on the till for the next customer. But you understand where I'm getting at, right? Is that I'm in a position in which that I can see where I can take my change and transfer it over to an item that has more value than the face value is showing. Being in at that energy is then giving me the ability to see it in other fashions, not just in those pennies. You know, and it's important to understand this because it's a matter of the underlying economic forces that are taking place. We knew the penny was going to get disbanded at some point. It costs far more to produce the penny than what the penny is worth. So it's only a matter of time before they're going to say, hey man, we don't want this penny in circulation anymore. It's just not affordable. It's costing all the American people. And when it's gone, guess who has a bunch of it? Right? Because they saw it coming. And not only do they have a bunch of it, they swapped all the bad currency, right, for the good currency. The bad currency being the zinc pennies and the good one being the copper. Right? Gresham's law kicking into place. It's all happening right here, right now. I want to share with you also to recognize these underlying economic forces outside of that. I mean, knowing that you can recognize them outside of the powers that be. Like they will literally describe the underlying economic forces and fail to be able to see what it is that is taking place. They blame it just the same as everybody else. Now, I really appreciate this one. This is coming from
the system that
oops. This is coming from Mananco64. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Mananco64, but he is incredibly good YouTube channel. You know, he's given me props and shout outs many times, so I have to thank him for that. And I really appreciate this interview. And I really appreciate Deja Vu, who had sent me the link to this. Judy Shelton, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Judy Shelton. She's a gold advocate, like trying to get a gold-backed U.S. Treasury bond. Very interesting idea that's behind it, but something that she had brought up inside of this interview, I keyed in on, and I was like, bang, right there. This is the reason why a lot of people misunderstand what it is that is happening within the economy, because they really take on a very common mainstream media narrative, and then they don't really see it any other way. And much like we were talking yesterday, it's like social conformity. You know, many of you remember the story that I was telling yesterday about the parking spot and how we were parking in this regular area, and then one day I showed up and there was a big semi blocking it, so I had to park in a different area. Well, the semi left was the other people were showing up for work and saw that I didn't park in this particular area. They chose not to park there either, thinking that they weren't allowed to. But there was no reason they couldn't do it. They just assumed, right? This is social conformity at its finest. And now when you think about how much mainstream media delivered information has now been set in stone, right? It's like the gospel, right? Listen to this. And then those of you who have been following me on the channel here for any length of time, you're going to recognize this. Listen to what she says here. This is, I think, 24 minutes into the video.
In wanting to cite China for the unfair trade practices that allowed China to really hollow out our own manufacturing capabilities, which had negative social consequences as whole cities had displaced workers. And through no fault of their own, American products were not able to compete successfully against cheaper imported goods that cheaper largely as a function of
All right. We don't really need to go too deep into it. But what did she say right there, right? Now she's blaming China, or she's not blaming China. She's actually speaking on Trump's behalf right there. I should back it up a little bit further than that, because she's actually talking about the Trump and the currency wars and stuff like that. But it leads into this. Ultimately, what she is describing is the Cantillon Effect, right? And now, like, ultimately she's going to say that it's, has some kind of political, environment that is causing this, but she described the Cantillon Effect almost perfectly, right? We recognize it as the Cantillon Effect, but they don't go on to, they don't see it as an underlying economic force. They see it as a problem of the political environment. Even because, if it wasn't for, they got to make it their problem, because if it wasn't their problem, they wouldn't have a job, right? So now they make it their problem, but it isn't them who was doing it. This is an underlying economic force that literally Cantillon describes, right? Let me play it again. Let me see if I can back it up for you guys a little bit, because I thought that was really good. When I was listening, the whole interview is really good. I mean, you guys should listen to it. She's talking about a gold-backed treasury bond, and I have a lot of questions that come up from it, but even though it's a lot of questions that I have, it's a hypothetical, right? There is no real gold-backed bond or anything else that has taken place. And so to say, oh, this would do this and this would do that, that's not, you can't do that, because it's all hypothetical, and you would just have a hypothetical answer to a hypothetical question.
And imposes tariffs is President Trump has always been very vocally against currency manipulation by our trade partners, and I think has gone quite far in wanting to cite China for the unfair trade practices that allowed China to...
Okay, so right there, right? Unfair trade practices. Blame the countries, blame the politics, blame something out there, but don't recognize it as an underlying economic force, like the Cantillon Effect. Blame. It's always about blame. Point the finger at something, but don't give the underlying reasoning for it as a natural consequence of ever increasing amounts of new money coming into the system. I mean, we know why it happened, but here they are saying, oh, well, once it had occurred, well, we can blame politics for it. But yet you can tell from way ahead of time that if you continuously inject this new money into the system, you're going to have a separation between the rich and the poor. You're going to have ever increasing amounts of foreign production coming in, and your domestic manufacturers are going to leave. You don't have to blame anybody for it. You can just recognize it as an underlying economic force that takes place when you have an abundance of new money and ever increasing amounts of it. It's so obvious to me, but then when I see stuff like this, I want to explain it to them in a way that they can understand it, so they don't blame the politics, but then recognize it from the Cantillon essay or the Cantillon Effect that was described hundreds of years before all these politics were even existing. Right? Like, you blame politics, but those politics didn't even exist during the times that Cantillon was describing the exact reasons why domestic manufacturers will leave. Anyway,
we hollow out our own manufacturing capabilities, which had negative social consequences as whole cities had displaced workers, and through no fault of their own, American products were not able to compete successfully against cheaper imported goods cheaper largely as a function of their government's efforts to manipulate the exchange rate.
I mean, yeah, maybe manipulation had a lot to do with it. Absolutely. Yeah, manipulation had a lot to do with it, no doubt about it. But the reality of the situation is something far different from what it is that they can solve, because it isn't something that they can deal with in a way that says, hey, we can bring these domestic manufacturers back from the foreign producers. The only way to do that is to not have the abundance of money that has created the luxurious experience here. That's the only way. It's underlying economic forces. Knowing Gresham's law is the reason why I even pulled these copper pennies out of circulation to begin with. All right, oops, I just lost one. There it is. knowing that at some point in the future, the demand for copper is probably going to increase, considering that they're already disbanding the penny for the reasons that it's too expensive to make it. Well, I wonder what's going to happen with the value of these things as time goes on. It's nice to be in a subconscious thought that I would like to rather be in a position of gaining my wealth as opposed to losing my wealth over time, not knowing what the hell it is that's going on. But recognizing it from an underlying economic force makes it very clear. Makes it very obvious. I mean, to me, I don't have to really question it. I don't care if you have fiat currency going on out there. I'm not basing my success on whether or not it's a fiat currency or a gold standard or anything else. I'm hopefully going to be successful because I'm very well understood of what it is that's taking place. Like, that's what I feel is going to be the best position for me. If you want to put it in a gold standard, fine, let's do it. You want to be fiat? I ain't worried. Right? People say it's losing your purchasing power. That's fine. I understand why it happens, how it happens, and I'll position myself to deal with it accordingly. Right? If you don't want to go fiat, you want to go gold, let's do it. You know, I did a video the other day. They were showing off these here different types of currencies that I have. Check these things out. These are cool as hell. These are gold backs. Right? I was showing the guys that work these things. These are gold backs. These are actually made of gold. Can you hear it? Right? There's actual real gold inside of these things. This one I think is, what was it, a 1/100th? Yeah, 1/100th of a troy ounce of gold. That's like, $40. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, to think, hey, man, wouldn't these things be great for circulation? Like, we can actually trade gold around and use it like it is a paper currency, like all the rest of them? Well, yeah, you could, but there's really no difference between this and a gold coin, right? I mean, it's all shaped like this, like it looks like kind of like money, like a dollar or something like that, but ultimately it isn't any different than a gold coin would be, So could you use it? Sure. But what happens if this is what we're using in circulation and I decide that I'm going to buy this here computer from China? Well, my gold back goes to China because I just bought this computer with it. Oh, goodbye gold. Hello poverty. Right? That's what ended up happening if you're on a gold standard. That's why I kind of laugh at this whole, I don't laugh at Judy Shelton for the efforts that she is going through to try and bring in a gold-backed treasury bond. I think it's a wonderful idea. Let's do it. I'd love to get some more gold in my hands, but I think it's going to be a terrible idea when the people who are buying the gold are foreigners and they take that possession of that gold and they take it right out of the United States. It's going to leave us in pain and misery and poverty. When you think about it, we're sitting on a fiat currency that has then locked that gold up into a vault that's stuck in somewhere in some basement, whether it's the New York Fed or Fort Knox or somewhere, somehow, but what it's not is in the hands of a foreign country. Right? If I want gold, I can go out there and get it. I don't need the country to try and go back on a gold standard. I can be on my own gold standard. I can do that anytime I want. I don't need to wait for anybody. Right? I can be on a fiat standard, gold standard, silver standard, crypto standard, anything I want, because I have my own choice to make on whether or not I want to be in a currency that is paper currencies, or if I want to be in a currency that is digital, or if I want to be in something that is gold backed, or if I want to be in copper pennies, right? Recognizing what it is that I am doing for the reasonings that I'm doing it, then not, doesn't leave me in a fear of, what it is that's going to be happening out there. It's just like, let it happen. Let it go. I like this one. This is an old one. This is an old silver certificate. You know what's cool about these old silver certificates? It says on here, this certificate is legal tender for all debts public and private. It says right on here, it says, this certifies that there is on deposit of the Treasury of the United States of America $1. $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. Says it right down there. Well, you guys can't see it because it's reversed, but it says it right down there. Pay $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. This is like a claim ticket. It's not even like, people say, well, it's just the same as paper currency. It doesn't mean anything. No, it's more like a claim ticket. Saying, hey, it's payable to the bearer on demand, right? I can go and get my silver. This is showing that there's on deposit at the Treasury $1 in silver. Now, Granted, I can't use it anymore because that's come to an end, but at the time when it was written, that's what it was. It was a claim ticket. Now, something very interesting is at the same time, I also have this one. It's a U.S. Treasury note. This one's really cool. See the red dot right there? It's not a Federal Reserve note. This doesn't have anything to do with the Federal Reserve. It's not a silver certificate, right? A silver certificate is redeemable for silver, like a real actual metal. All right, maybe not this, but I mean, if it was a coin, a silver coin, this would be redeemable for the actual metal. Right? This has something different to say on it. It says this note is legal tender at its face value for all debts, public and private. And it says here, the United States will pay to the bearer on demand $2. So what it says is that it will pay $2, right? $2 in silver, essentially $1, says it right there. This will pay $2. Two of these. This is exchangeable for two of these, and this would be exchangeable for the silver. Now, my favorite part of this little thing is this one right here. This is a Federal Reserve note from 1950. The silver certificate, this one is from 1953. Or I'm sorry, the United States Treasury note is from 1953. The silver certificate is from 1957. So of these three currencies here, the two notes are the older of them. Or I'm sorry, the silver certificate in the U.S. Treasury are the newer of these currencies. This one's 1950. So the silver or the Federal Reserve note is older than the silver certificate in the U.S. Treasury. Something interesting that it says on here, it says, and it's tiny, very small, like right up here, this little disclaimer. See here on the U.S. Treasury note, it's big. That disclaimer, you can really read it. It's really big. But this one, it's almost in microfilm, right? It's almost a micro print. It's hardly you can read it at all. It's really tiny. Interesting enough, it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable for lawful money at the United States Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. It's redeemable for lawful money. Well, if it's redeemable for lawful money, what is it? Will pay to the bearer on demand $5. Very interesting. This one doesn't say redeemable for lawful money, but this one does. The Federal Reserve note. Remember, this is the older note. This one came out before the Treasury note did. This is a pretty cool Treasury note. Look, it's a star note too. All right. This right here is the reason why it is that most people hate the Federal Reserve. It's because they don't understand what it is that was taking place. This at one time was redeemable for lawful money. There was only so much that they could print out, supposedly. By putting this into circulation, people had the ability to do transactions. It didn't matter. They could have been doing it with U.S. Treasury notes, or even better yet, they should have been doing it with silver certificates. But they chose to use the Federal Reserve notes. Made it available. They didn't, I don't want that Federal Reserve note, make it a U.S. Treasury note. Right? That's what I'll accept. No, this one was out there the same as this one, and the same as this one. All three of them at the exact same time. Remember, the Federal Reserve note in this is the older one. It's from 1950, United States Treasury note from 1953, and a silver certificate from 1957, right? All three in circulation at the exact same time, and very few people recognized the difference between them and what it was that they were dealing with. This is how they were able to get away with it. Because once you got rid of the other currencies, what was left? The Federal Reserve note. Without it, there was no way that the transactions of the world would have been accomplished. There wasn't enough of this to do it. So as these Federal Reserve notes started flooding the world and these things disappeared, the only thing that ended up being left was the Federal Reserve notes. Now, when we think about what it is that means, because most of the time people are like, oh man, they are in charge of the currencies and how it is that we do transactions and they're responsible for it all. I love bringing this one up and showing people, you know what this is? It's called the Disney dollar. You know what's funny about it? Is it has a disclaimer on it too. It says, may be used as legal tender only at Disneyland Park, Disneyland hotels, Walt Disney World resorts, and Disneyland stores in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. It's a token. You know, not too far off from like a token you get at the arcade for playing the video games, right? See, anybody can create currency all you want. Just like this, just like these Disney dollars did. You can't do it and say, oh, we're making U.S. currency. This comes really close, but I mean, it's pretty obvious. Mickey Mouse is up on there and it says Disney dollars. And, you know, I don't think anybody would actually believe that it was a dollar. And even if they did, it's redeemable for a dollar somewhere. So, you know, what's the harm inside of it? See? This is currencies. You can make currency at any time you want. Make it anything. You can accept anything you want. Most people don't know this. They don't believe it. They don't even think about it. They just assume that they have no other choice in accepting the Federal Reserve notes. You can choose at any time to position yourself any way you want. Copper pennies, right? Think about it. You put all your money into copper pennies right now at face value, you would triple your money in actual metal value. That's insane to think, right? Like instant tripling of your money if you could just get it all into copper pennies. I mean, that's crazy to think. But yet, very few people would ever consider that. And yet, me, I'm thinking, well, I just bought a bottle of water, and instead of taking 68 cents and change, I'm going to take 15 copper pennies or 18 copper pennies and, 50 cents. In 2 quarters. And if I see any more copper pennies, I'm going to filter through those and take them out too. And I'm going to do this until I can't do it anymore. And then once I do that, people are going to be like, oh man, you got a stash of copper pennies? And I'd be like, yeah, I got a stash of copper pennies. And I'm going to hold on to them till I'm a real old man. And then I'll go through them and look for the rarities and the different varieties and see if there's anything in there that I really like. And if not, then I might just sell them off, or who knows. But it's the idea of being in it. It's being in the flow. It's being in the energy. It's being in the mindset. People who say, oh, that's worthless, that's pointless, that doesn't mean anything, convince me of it. No, man. You don't be in the energy. I mean, if you don't want to be in it, don't be in it. But then again, the people who are in it and they are able to acquire something in their life because they understand the difference between a zinc penny and a copper penny, and knowing that it was going to end up being pulled from circulation. So for years and years and years, as you're working a retail job and you watch that till pop open, you filter all the copper pennies out of it one by one. And it's cool because I found all kinds of wheat pennies and proof pennies and all kinds of stuff, and silver quarters and dimes and stuff. All right. What time is it? We got a few more minutes here. Any questions or comments we want to hit? Deja Vu, thank you so much for the video. It was a great one. Mananko64, excellent channel. There's your example of sovereign wealth. Simon believes the currency is getting stronger. He believes that our current government is having problems getting the money out of there. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think you're a little bit misinterpreting the things that I have said in the past. I said the dollar will get stronger than anybody had ever given it any kind of consideration for. I wouldn't necessarily give the exact day, this moment that it's getting stronger, but it will get stronger over time as the demand for dollars is going to absolutely explode at some point as the world dollar denominated debt starts to come due, or people start to get out of it one way or the other. In fact, I just even like, let me see if I can bring it up. What was it? China just recently just sold a whole bunch of dollar-denominated debt. It was more in euro. Like the articles, I believe, were more about the euro um, debt, but I didn't really read up that much on it. But and it doesn't matter. I'll go and find the articles for it. But right now, even like to think about it, like China is selling debt, their government debt, in a foreign currency, not in their own domestic currency, right? In a foreign currency. That means they're borrowing euros, they're borrowing dollars. Well, what happens when that comes due? Right? They got to pay it back in dollars. How do they get the dollars? They got to demand them somehow, right? Whether it's the selling of their products or the borrowing of more or getting their other countries that they have lent dollars to pay them back. One way or the other, they're going to want dollars, or the other countries are going to want dollars, right? Because there's too many dollar-denominated debts that exist out there. It's very important it's important to keep that in mind. Like right now, you might not see the dollar strengthening, and it's not necessarily going to strengthen every single day until the final demise. But to understand that at some point that dollar denominated debt is going to come due, and it's going to demand that the Federal Reserve try to do whatever it can to provide the liquidity to pay that debt off. All right, moving on. What time is it? We got time. We got 2 more minutes here, guys. All right. So much confusion. I have listened to Warren Buffett lately, and I am seriously cautious about metals now. I wouldn't. Okay, well, I'm not sure why you would be cautious about metals unless you are anticipating metals going up to try and make a profit off of it. And if that is the case, then yeah, I would be concerned too if I were you, because I don't give it a meaning of, hey, I need this stuff to go up in order for it to be a good position for me. I've been buying into the precious metals. I've been collecting these things as insurance policy so that I could be outside of the third party claim. The whole point of the idea of grabbing copper pennies is because they're worth more than the face value. It's more than what the government says the government is trying to claim. And it wasn't like they're trying to claim it. It's just the material they made it out of just now exceeded the face value of it. So for me, that's what I look at. Like, I don't have expectations of anybody else doing anything to try and do the right thing. Like, that's not going to happen. The right thing is your understanding of what it is that's happening out there so that you can position yourself for it. Now, Warren Buffett, great dude, wonderful, made all kinds of money off of, his investments and stuff like that. Everybody has a lot of, they look up to him. But any kind of delivery of information that has come that you're finding on the mainstream media is propagandized. So yeah, I would be very cautious about listening to Warren Buffett unless you are taking it in as a little tiny piece of the rest of the information that you are getting. Like for me, I don't get monetary policy information from the mainstream media. Like, I do not get it. Like, anything that is coming out about monetary policy that I'm reading on a news article or something, I'll take it with a grain of salt. Like, I'll read it just to see what it is that the propagandized information is attempting to deliver. But everything that I want to learn or understand or research or think about monetary policy comes directly from the policymakers themselves, because any other information is going to be misinterpreted, misrepresented, biased, whatever, right? But if you go right to the source, like there's no other filter other than the one that you are interpreting as you're reading the information. That's the only filter that exists. That's information that is directed right into the heart of your understanding of it. Most of the time, people will get information filtered from other people's understandings of it, which is usually regurgitated from other people's understanding of it. And that's one of the reasons why we have a very confused, messed up kind of situation that is happening within monetary policy that has people so confused about what it is that the Federal Reserve should be doing. Like, to me, it's just like I sit back and I'm like, what is the Federal Reserve going to say? That's so important to me. Like, what are they going to say? Because then I'm going to look over at the markets and I'm going to like, how are they interpreting it? Because that's the monetary policy right there. Right? Not the actions, those words being delivered. Okay, I agree. The government never will let deflation happen. That's why the credible threat of us not getting liquidity out of the world seems strange to me. Uh, Listen to many but read books. Jim Rickards is also good. Yeah. All right. If we simply don't treat people like pennies, that what a world. Yeah. What other currency aside from the dollar would the world rather use? It doesn't, well, see, that's just the thing. It doesn't matter whether they would rather use it or not. It's a matter of whether or not it's there for them to use. Like you can say, hey, I want to use euros. I want to use gold. I want to use Bitcoin. I want to use renminbis. I want, whatever, or uh, yuan. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to use, it's what's available to use. Okay, just like anything else out there, if you want it and it's not available, then you can't get it, or it's very expensive, or it just doesn't work. The reason why everybody is using the Federal Reserve is because the Federal Reserve has printed up enough money for people to use. The only way that was possible is because the United States has been able to provide the Federal Reserve with an asset to purchase in order to provide the liquidity to the world. That purchasing of that item was the US Treasury debt. So now we have to think the only reason that the United States has become the world superpower is because the sheer amount of debt that it has taken on. Now, in order to have the world accept the dollar, right, in any way, shape, or form, is that has to have something that is going to be a safe and liquid asset, the US Treasury. So you got these two components to it. The safe and liquid asset, the US Treasury debt. So without it, the dollar couldn't exist. And so when we think, how is it that we have enough dollars out there for the world to use in order to perform all the world transactions, is you have to have enough available debt for the Federal Reserve to be able to purchase. Now, the United States is in a position that nobody else is going to trust. They don't even like the United States doing this, but they're certainly not going to trust any other nation to go into debt as deep as the United States has done, because that's what they would need to do. China would have to be in debt as deep as the United States is in order to provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasuries. It would have to, basically take away the US Treasuries and then provide their own debt out there to be used as a safe and liquid asset, and then provide the world with enough currency, printing up of yuan, in order to fulfill all the transactions that are out there. No nation even wants to do that, let alone does the world trust any other nation to do it. They don't even trust the United States to do it. The only reason why it's the United States is because essentially grew to that position and it hasn't collapsed yet. Once it does, then something else will take its place. It will fill the void. But until then, it's not going to come from a conscious decision of people saying, oh man, I would much rather use Chinese currency. Well, that's fine. But there ain't enough of it to do all the transactions. So you're going to be able to perform like maybe 3, 4, 5% of the world's transactions with it. And then everybody else is going to starve in misery because there's no other currency to do any of the rest of the transactions except for dollars. All right. Once you start doing the contracts in dollars, plenty of that money out there, and all the transactions in the world can happen. And that's the difference in understanding it. Like, people really have to internalize. It's not a matter of you just wanting, like, even the whole idea of Judy Shelton talking about going back to or using a gold bond. Like, if the United States is obligated to pay anything in gold, then it'll collapse the United States government, because eventually there's going to be exported to foreign buyers. Right? You import stuff and you export money. That's what ended up happening. That will be what ends up happening to it. And so it's not a good thing for the United States to go towards a gold currency, gold standard, or a gold position, not when you are deficit trade, because you import stuff and export money. That's scary, dangerous to do. Right? Now, if we were producing for ourselves here and we were importing more than we were exporting, oh, I'm for it. Hell yeah. Let's sign up, man. like do it now. Instant, fast. Hurry up. Right? But as long as we're in deficit trade, hell no. right? You keep going into the fiat currency because we're importing stuff. Think about that. And we're exporting paper promises to pay into the future with more paper promises. Who's taking the most advantage of that? Like, the world goes out there, they take their time, their effort, their energy, their resources, their people, and then they send us their skills and stuff that they send us their stuff from the skills that they have, and then we trade for that stuff empty paper promises to pay into the future with more empty paper promises. Who's taking advantage of who? Who has the best position in that? Who wants to screw that up? Like, that's what drives me crazy about it, is like, who wants to screw that up? You got the world right now. The world is sending us their efforts, and we are giving them literally nothing for it. Wow. Holy crap, what a way to go. And they're ripping us off? Okay, well, I'm gonna keep getting these damn pennies. All right, I'm gonna keep loading up on pennies until they're no longer in the till, because I recognize that's a system that cannot last. That will not last forever. At some point, that will come to an end, because if you are not producing the real goods and services, I don't care about all the creative financing in the world. That ain't gonna fix nothing, right? You have to be able to produce the real goods and services right here within your own domestic borders. And if that ain't going to happen, there's eventual misery to be found, whether it's from the deviation of the rich and the poor or a complete collapse of the entire system. Uneducated economist, you guys let me know.